You avoided the recording.
Good job, Dale.
That's the voice of God, I think, and God is a female. Okay, with that, Bill, are you ready to tell us about the guests we have today? We can come back to you if you want. Just talk. Very good. Welcome. Welcome. Got it? Oh, got one more over there. Yeah, Nick's part of the family. Nick. With that, not necessarily planned, but a good time to do it. Talking to somebody this last week, we discovered that the family membership has not been really talked about very much. A lot of people don't know that we have a family membership category. So very quickly, it was passed last July. It's been on the books. Basically, if we have a first primary member, the second family member living in that same house has essentially half membership rate. So we do this to encourage people to join, bring in their family, make this a family affair. So again, we'll send out more on that, but I'm sorry that we didn't disclose that more broadly last time. With that, Cart Day. Today is LBC, Lose Buckets of Change Day. They're over here at the table. So if you brought them, please leave them. If you didn't, do it next week. We really need to build up. This is all for the cart fund. And as you know, we're a little light on that this year. And with that, we also have a My Story today. And for today, we have Missy Parker. Do you want to come up here or? Either way.
Be near it. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Missy Parker. I joined Rotary in September of last year, so very excited to be here. I have 2 slides today that are, if you remember anything about me, those are the 2 slides I want you to remember that are most important. So here's my lovely family. So my husband Cam and I have been married for 15 years, coming up in June. And we have 2 adorable girls that I think are adorable, but I'm biased. So Adeline, which is my mini-me, as you can tell, she's 10. She's in 5th grade at Philip Simmons Middle School. Her life revolves around volleyball and straight A student. And then Miss Callie. So Callie is in 1st grade and she is 7. So she's also super smart. So that's my family. I was born in Charlotte. Well, I was born in Charlotte, but grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina. Had a pretty typical childhood, revolved around mostly school sports. At a very early age, starting in 3rd grade, I played competitive soccer. So that was my whole life from 3rd grade all the way to 12th. So I praise my parents for, keeping me out of trouble because I was always gone. But now as a parent, I realize the sacrifices that that's going to cause as my daughter's looking at doing that for volleyball. So that's actually how I got to Charleston. So I was recruited by several teams to go play soccer for their schools. And my dad gave me some great advice and said, hey, you need to look at a school that you would attend whether you were playing soccer or not. And I wasn't convinced that I really wanted to do soccer. And so I ended up being recruited by a CFC and was like, who doesn't want to move to Charleston? And so, yeah, this would be a great place to live no matter whether I was, playing soccer for the school or not. So went to CFC, played my freshman year and then was completely burned out. And so I quit and I did what any great college student would do. I joined a sorority. So I was a Tri Delta for the rest of my time at CFC and had a great college career. Summer after graduated, met my husband. And from then we started dating and we moved to Charlotte where my sister was living and still lives, worked in television, advertising sales and outside sales and was doing that and decided, you know what, I want to change focus in my career and I want to get in fashion. And so I thought, oh, I need to go back to school. I want to go to FIT. I want to move to New York. And doing that, I had the brilliant realization, maybe I should try to work in retail because I've never done that. So I always worked in restaurants. So got a job working part-time in addition to my working in outside sales full-time, working for Ralph Lauren in South Park Mall and loved it. And so from there, actually, my manager was like, you don't need to go to FIT. We got a great position you're perfect for in New York. You should interview for it. And so she had recommended me. It was to assist the regional director of all the New York, Hamptons, Connecticut stores. So I worked in corporate, but was based, if those of you are New Yorker, the 72nd and Madison in the Mansion, that pretty iconic store. Excuse me. So that was pretty fun. So got the job, obviously, worked there, worked for Ralph Lauren for 5 years. Actually, that's how I moved back to Charleston, was working for the store on King Street, and then it closed in 2009. So during that time in New York, we got engaged, moved back here, and then got married. Actually, at the Daniel Island Club was where my reception was. So, and then from there, I started working after the store closed. This was happening while I was planning my wedding. And so my wedding planner was like, come work for me. So I'm like, okay. So went and worked for her for several years and then ended up from there working for the next 8 years in the private club world. So for those of you that are big golfers, I worked for the golf club at Briars Creek in membership for 4 years. And from there was recruited and worked for Harbor Club at West Edge for the past 4 years. So the next picture, I'm wrapping it up for those of you who are counting the minutes. So this is actually all of what I tell you is the culmination, I feel like, of where I am today in my career. So I really feel like I've stepped into my calling. Last May, I took a big leap and actually am now working for a nonprofit based in Charleston. So we build and operate sustainable medical facilities in developing countries. So we're in Uganda, Nicaragua, and Honduras. And last year, this is my husband and I, my husband front and center, and I'm up there with some of our team. We went on a medical mission trip to Uganda for 10 days. And it was life-changing in all the best possible ways. We served over 1,200 people that week, got to go on 2 safaris at Murchison Falls, but just the people was just amazing. And when you talk about access, it's just incredible what you're seeing and lack of. So I am excited that way. I'm planning a trip. My whole family's going to go to Honduras on a medical mission trip in June. So that's it. There, hopefully I kept within 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Missy. Great addition to our club. I think you'll all agree. With that, the next thing on the agenda is Chip, and he's going to talk to you about next year's board of directors. So Chip. Down or up, either way. Make sure that the mic is working. Just tap it and see. Here, use this.
Hello? 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 Hear me? So this is exciting. This will be the 24-25 year will be the year that I'm coming in as president. But we're also having 4 people moving from the board this year. One of them is Derek, who was past president, and he is literally moving off the board. And we really thank him for all of his contributions. One of the reasons we're here today is Derek. He led that entire effort. The other members that will be leaving the board and also their positions have yet to be filled. So if you have interest, irreplaceable, but we will move on. We're calling his position now enrichment, but speaker series is what everyone knows that at. Greg Ives and Greg Baker are also moving off. Board that's actually going to be there when we start the year, and hopefully we can replace those other two fellows, is Evan Murray, who is going to be doing our fundraising. Bob, who will be Paul, who is taking care of fellowship. Bill Theofold is our community service. Ed Rominger, the foundation. Romeo will be taking over membership from Kevin. And Angela Drake will be president-elect, taking my spot.
It's quite a group. I know most of them. But it'll be a great board. And that, let's get on with our trip across the Atlantic. And up here, there.
Thank you, Bob. And then what do I just, I want that right one for next. That one. To share this with you. Excuse me. One thing I'm going to be talking about today is a transatlantic sail that my and you might be on mute. About. Well, Caroline is a consultant with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and she was granted a 1-month sabbatical to do. Meanwhile, I had a bucket list that I was starting to check off, and one of them included something I'd had stale. So I shared that with Caroline. She called ARC. It's Atlantic Rally for Cruisers, and they host each year. It starts in Canary Islands are part of you say we anticipated it would take 18 days. Thursday, December 7th is when we cross the finish line. in a division of 17 boats of our class world. Profile nautical miles. And actually, in our case, it was a total. Fact, seaworthy there. Bit of- and Be the helms here. In the air. Center of the boat, the bow of the boat. Ida. Still today, she's am I pushing the right button? Skipper of the boat from Finland. Came back. Totally elevated the experience. Or you finished a 4-hour shift. That. And Dave there. Oh, the they did cabin mate, my bunk mate. We shared a cabin together. And we heads real fast. She had to squeeze around it, but crew of 9. Okay, super. Jack. There it is. And so here's the nav station. It's behind us, and how far do we have to go to catch? And if you line, we are a little bit. So this little gas station. Then you just gave it a real quick. Yeah. And that's where you, yeah. Uh, uh, you're, you're, uh, provision the boat before we left. So here are all the liquids, lots of water and all these red cap plastic containers. You needed it because we were sailing parallel to the equator, not far north of the equator for days, and it was hot. In fact, speaking of that cabin, I can't tell you how many nights I laid there just laying still and still sweating because it was so hot. And there was a little bit of a hatch that you could open. But if you dare to open it all the way, you ran the risk that you were going to hit a wave and the wave was going to come and drench your mattress. The folks in the Canary Islands, am I clipping a little bit? The folks in the Canary Islands, they were great. They came out and cheered us on as we were leaving. This is as we were approaching the start of the race. So there was a committee boat that blasted a cannon at 1 p.m. that Sunday when we started our race. Now, this was an interesting app that we had. It would show your relative position relative to other boats. Now, this is just as we're leaving the island. There's the tip of the island. So the boats are all coming out together. And then guess what happened? Essentially, all boats went due west, except our boat. And whoops, let's go back just one. And the reason they did that, they wanted to take that shortest path to St. Lucia, in spite of the weather. Whatever the conditions were, they were going to deal with as they got there. Our captain said, we're going to sail south along the coast of Africa for 2 to 3 days, because then we'll pick up stronger prevailing winds, trade winds, that will make up ground later. So it's kind of like the tortoise and the hare, and it worked out well. But what was happening, Lisa and others back home were saying, oh my God, they're going the wrong way. They're going south. Everyone else is going west. They're in dead last. And now they're even getting more and more behind the other boats. What's happening here? Now, what also happened, folks, was I was anticipating that we'd get in 18 days. And it was really important that we do. Unbeknownst to Caroline, her boyfriend had the talk with me. And he was looking to propose to her when we got in. So he and my wife, Lisa, were going to be dockside when we got in. And then we were renting a villa together. And we were going to have a cook come in, prepare special meals and so forth. So we had all this planned when we got in, but we had to get there. And we were going the wrong way. So, but it all worked out well. So this is sailing along the coast of Africa. Africa's way over here. This instrument's very important. It's called apparent wind angle. That's what keeps your sails in optimal trim. They told us if you see refugees, don't render assistance, call the authorities. And it's really good advice, actually, because you might try to render assistance and piracy still exists today. And you could assist a boat that ends up being pirates. They board your boat and you're left with their boat or no boat at all. So it's just something to be mindful of. We did not see any refugees or any others, but it can happen. So this is what it's like out there. This is not a typically rough day or anything, but this is what it would be hour upon hour, day after day. Funny enough, this is a knife right there. And I needed it one time up on the foredeck in really bad conditions. And when you're passing someone a knife, last thing you want to do is cut anybody in the middle of the ocean. Yeah, there are times that get a little hairy like that. You'll see in a moment. So the swells, good question, be 6 feet-ish. But what happens is you have to remember it's 6 feet to the bottom, 6 feet to the top. So it looks to you like a 12-foot wave. And it looks like that wave's just going to wash over you. And then fortunately, what happens as the wave approaches, the boat rises up to the crest, down the other side to the trough, and then back up. It's just a motion you get used to after hours and days. But they look intimidating, and the camera doesn't do them justice because they're actually much bigger than they look. Evan, I think this plays just a tad. So that's the motion, folks. So this is the foredeck, the bow of the boat. These scoops let some air down into the cabin space down below. This is an emergency life raft. And there you go. Thanks, Evan. Typically the speed would be about 7.5 knots, which would be a little over 8.5 miles an hour. Seems really slow. On a sailboat, that's pretty good speed. And mind you, we're going 24 hours a day. This I took from the bow. It's facing stern, and it gives you some sense of the swells. You can see the transom actually up a little bit while the bow's down a little bit. Okay. We did for 2.5 hours total, and I know that number so well because you got penalized for any time you use the motor, so you wanted to use it so sparingly. But yeah. Oh. We did, we rarely used it, but there was autopilot if we needed it. Sometimes we found we could do a little bit better, but it's always nice to have it as kind of a backup. At the very beginning, when literally the wind was so soft, we were actually going backwards with the current. Evan? Oh, can we play that a little bit, Evan? This is just to give you a sense of motion. What happened, folks, is if you look out over the ocean, there's nobody. Land could be well over 1,000 miles ahead of you, well over 1,000 miles behind you, and no boats anywhere close in sight. So this is going about 7.5 knots, maybe 8.7 miles an hour. It looks faster and it feels faster, but that's about what it is. And again, that's just the whole horizon that you see. Thanks, Evan. Now this is our spinnaker. This is a light air sail that you put up that gets the maximum capture of wind. You want, when you hoist it, you want it to go straight up and rather quickly. Well, there was one time it went out rather horizontally, and it caught a stanchion post that supports the lifeline that goes around the boat, and it got a tear. We had to bring it down, and there's actually tape that you use to tape a tear in a spinnaker sail. And then we sewed it too to make it strong. Well, guess what? That lasted for about 2.5 days. And then I was on my shift with 2 others one night. It's about midnight. All of a sudden a squall kicked up. So think of Charleston, summertime, 4 in the afternoon, we get those pop-up thunderstorms. Everything turns black, it starts to blow. The patio umbrella blows over and all that stuff. It's like, what's going on? That's what we're in the middle of. The spinnaker tore at its weakest point. And all of a sudden it shredded, completely shredded. And it's just screaming, it's slapping and banging, just kept slapping and everything. I ran up on the foredeck. I yelled down in the cabin, all hands on deck, twice over, because people were down there sleeping. Meanwhile, I had my vest on. I shackled myself to the line that goes up to the bow. Got up there as fast as I could. This sail is a mess, and we have to get it down as fast as possible. Worse yet, half of it now has shredded and gone into the water, and it's running along the side of the boat. Uh-oh. Now we're in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of a storm, in the middle of the night, and if this thing gets wrapped around the rudder, this be a horrible situation. So I'm up there on the foredeck, port side, and I'm pulling this sail with all my might, just pulling and pulling, because it's collecting water. It's heavy as all. And I'm pulling this and finally got the sail up, that half of it, and I'm on the deck. The other half is still up there. And it's blowing like mad, slapping. You can't hear anything. You can't see anything in the dark. Meanwhile, Caroline, my daughter, and others are back in the cockpit. We're trying to get the halyard released to lower the sail. I'm up there, shackled at least, but pulling it down with all my might, all my weight. Meanwhile, the sail fills with air and it wants to pull me over the side of the boat. The last thing you want to do is be shackled to the boat, but pulled over the side. Now I'm in the water and you're getting slammed against the hull. And you're getting waterboarded because the boat at that point in that storm's going about 10 miles an hour. An Olympic swimmer swims 5 miles an hour. So I didn't want to fall in, be getting slammed, drowning, and nobody even knows I'm there. In fact, one of the things that hit me the hardest was all this went on. And then I didn't realize till we got home and spoke with Lisa. She said, Caroline told her that story. And she said, after a minute or more, she looked at one of the other crew members and said, has anyone seen my dad? All she knew is I was up there, she hoped, scrambling, trying to get this darn sail down. But we did. We got it down. We got it stowed away. And then we were able to replace this sail with another sail for the rest of the duration of the trip. But that was a hairy moment, to say the least. Better days, better times. Here's Caroline. This is soft seas. Nice day. Certainly not like the night before, let's say. And there she is at the helm. Caroline perhaps had the least helmsmanship experience before we started, but by the end, I kid you not, I'm not saying this because I'm her dad, but she really was good at that helm. I would put her with anybody aboard, including the co-owner skipper. She taught me tricks about not oversteering, but she was just a natural with it. So let's play this a little bit. She had the best song list on the boat too. One of the Brits and one of the Swede said there's no way she was going to convert them to country music. And by the end of the trip, she did actually. They liked country music. So there's this little music box there, and she's playing her tunes. You hear a little bit of it. All right. That's just me at the helm. That was with Rifa. One more, please. And this is actually Marcus, our cook, one time taking the helm. He was usually cooking, but here he is at the helm. It's a great blow-up picture. So this is the transom area I was telling you about. That's the wheel, of course, that you steer from. What got on your knees after a while, time and time, you had to crawl literally on your hands and knees over this part of the boat to get to this part of the cockpit. And then right here's where you would go down into the cabin or topside around the decks. Okay. Now this, what a great picture of clouds. And see, it was one of the few times, folks, that we saw a sailboat way off in the distance. One of the few times. And what was remarkable is, I'll show you in another picture, there was one time we almost had a collision with another boat in the middle of the night. Go figure, how does that happen that you're in the middle of Yosemite National Park or something, no one around, and all of a sudden you bump into somebody? Or one of those roads where you go around a corner thinking, nobody, we haven't seen anyone in 100 miles, and there's a truck or something, you know? So, but yeah, there's another boat way off in the distance. Typical picture at sea, daytime. Heading west, right? There's the westward sunset. Now here we're doing 8.5 knots. It looks pretty slow, but actually 8.5 knots would be close to 10, and that's about hull speed. So that was actually a good speed at that time. Sunset. Sunset. It's just, this is how you spent your 18 days, much of it. You know what, 95% of it was calm and great, and that 5% can really get you. Another, please. Sailing at night. Often, sometimes we had moonlight, and that really helped a lot. But usually it was dark. This was taken with a flash. But usually it was dark, and all you had was just the glow of an instrument that you were sailing by. Again, the cabin going down below. This is at sunrise, so the sun's just coming up in the morning. This was the radio that I had to use and call the captain of another sailboat just to make sure he saw us. He knew we were there. We happened to be in the right of way at that point, so we were the stand-on vessel, maintain our course and speed, and he was the give-way vessel where he had to just change his course a little bit to make sure we didn't collide. But in the middle of the ocean, where we'd been hundreds of miles without seeing anybody else. That's early morning. This is Caroline's shift. Sun coming up, sunrise. Sunrise. Sometimes the sea was still a little rough. It looked angry. You know, you didn't know what kind of day are we going to have today, but this is what you might see first thing in the morning sometimes. Now, entertainment. We would see dolphins sometimes, and the dolphins were great. They're so playful. They're always so happy. So we'd see dolphins. And then we even saw, they're not huge. One more, please. A pilot whale. You see him in the upper left. So let's do the next one and play. Watch for it. Watch for it. He's going to pop up there in the upper left. And there's a pilot whale. So part of our entertainment. Now this, let me just give you, and then play it, Evan, in a second. But Seb, our co-owner skipper, had worn the same pair of underwear for like 3 or 4 days. And he said, enough's enough. We're going to have a burial at sea. So here he is. Go ahead and play it, Evan. There you go. That's how you entertain. Now, here's how you bathe. Every 2 or 3 days, you put a bucket of water over the side, you drench yourself about 3 times with maybe with a little bit of shampoo and body gel. That's how you, and then you did a very quick freshwater rinse down to preserve the fresh water. A bird, this is just my thing. I would see a bird 1,000 miles from anything around, and he's just flying and flying and flying. And I say, how does he do that? He just never lands in the water. How do they keep flying? I still haven't figured it out. I'm fascinated by that. I just don't understand it. They would never land in the water. They just fly and fly. So the meals were good. Marcus was fabulous. This is how he elevated the experience. We really had good meals. There's Seb, our co-owner skipper in that galley area. There's Marcus cooking. And guess what, guys? Knowing that he had 2 Americans aboard, one more, and knowing it was Thanksgiving Day back in America, he prepared this cake for Caroline and me. It's just so thoughtful. So here we are. Rifa brought a bottle of Japanese whiskey, and then we didn't drink, as you might imagine, much on the boat, but around 5 o'clock, some days we just have a little toast of that whiskey. It was just a nice time of day. This is a typical pop-up storm that you would get. Quickly it would change, and that would hit us from time to time. And then now, guys, coming into St. Lucia, there's St. Lucia. You can see we're a bit haggard, we're tired, we're ready to get off the boat. But one more storm was still going to get us as we're coming across the finish line. We got drenched, but we are rounding the mark for the finish line. And this is us coming in. And at that point, Lisa and Caroline's boyfriend, Austin, had been there to greet us. And Caroline and Austin are over here like, woohoo, guys, hey, welcome. So on the side of the boat, you can't really see it, was this. But this was our number in the race. And then finally, guys, this is dockside. We're drenched, we're wet, but ARC, the organization, gave us some rum drinks to celebrate, and we're back landside. And then finally, the best part of all was then we gathered together at this villa, Lisa and Caroline and Austin, and we spent about 3 days there, and we just had a great villa, great venue, great meals. And Austin had proposed to Caroline. So she finished a bucket list goal for herself and is starting a new chapter in her life. Yes, sir. Steve, no, because what happened, you wanted to get to Midway, and then at Midway, you knew the rest was kind of downhill from there. So, and I never felt like we weren't going to make it. There were a few precarious moments, but no. But by the end, though, we were done. We were spent. We were ready to take a hot shower, not have this going on all the time. We were ready to be back. Steve, you had a question? I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, Greg, you said you had 4-hour shifts, right? How long would it be then until your next shift? With 8 of you, I'm guessing it's.
It varied anywhere from you would be back up in 4 hours or 8 hours. So that's what it varied between. There was a little rotation that occurred in there, but typically you had a minimum of 4 hours downtime, but you could have as much as 8 hours downtime.
Greg, I want to know, did your cook use that cutting board again after he had his dirty drawers on
I
there?
hope not. I hope not. Ann had a question, I think. Yep.
I was just wondering if you or anyone else on the crew had any medical experience in anticipation of any.
Yeah, the co-owners give, so ARC, the Atlantic Rally for Cruisers, they make sure that every boat is seaworthy, well-rigged, and you have to have a whole bunch of supplies that there's a checklist for, including medical equipment. And the co-owner skipper in this case had to be trained on how to apply that. It only goes so far. We did have satellite radio in the case of an emergency. But even that would be, how quick can anyone get to you? So you got to be self-sufficient as much as you can, but there are medical doctors landside that if you literally take a picture and then send it via satellite radio, they could help diagnose a bit. but that's about what you're working with.
And Dad, can you hear me?
Hey, Caroline.
When we were joking, when we were within 500 miles, we were saying, oh, okay, now we're set for helicopter rescue in case someone needs it.
True, true.
One of those milestone moments was when we were 500 miles out. We knew that we could be rescued by a helicopter if we needed it.
Yeah, that was comforting to know. You're right. You're right. Yeah. You know, that's a great question. And Caroline, I welcome yours in just one second. I say that I would not. I'm, one and done. That was enough. I loved it. It's something I really wanted to do. I don't need to do it again. So Caroline, how do you feel?
I'm the same way. It was one of those truly once in a lifetime opportunities that if you do it once, you don't need to do it again type of thing. It was physically the most challenging thing I've ever done, and mentally, it's a huge mental game that you're playing in your head the whole time. And the routine, my dad was saying that the time we had for our shifts, we were using the British Royal Navy shift clock system. So you were on 4, off 4, some you were on 2, off 2. And that is mentally draining, doing that 24 hours a day, day after day, and your body gets drained because you're physically moving. Like there were times when I was sleeping at night, trying to sleep, and you're holding on to your bed because you're going to roll off if you don't, because you're healing over so much. So the physical strain on top of the mental aspect of not sleeping well and, being in the heat and rationing your food and water intake, it's a lot.
But that shift changes. So you're not always on the same shift. You might be on sunrise shift, you might be on sunset shift, but it would alternate, if you will. Bill? Sure.
Go that time of the year because that's the wildest season.
It's the most favorable, Bill, as far as picking up the prevailing trade winds that actually favor you. They run basically from Africa toward the Caribbean. So it does assist you. It's a more favorable time of year.
Greg, I got 3 questions.
Okay.
First, you talked about piracy. Were there any weapons on the boat that the captain or the owner had?
Not that I know of. He didn't express if he did, but some do.
Okay.
Mhm.
Second, were there any conflicts with relationships on the boat that size, 9 people? Curious.
Yeah, and funny enough, the cabin mate, the bunkmate I had was, it was just awkward a little bit at first, quite honestly. And I think that was just a cultural thing. I tend to be one of those guys, if you see me walking down Daniel Island sidewalk and I'm walking by, I'm going to say hi, and he might be the kind of person that would just kind of, Eastern European cultures, maybe a little bit. He just like kind of stay to himself. Maybe he's in a very urban area and if he'd be saying hi to everybody all day long. So
It was language too. We had 4 Finns, 1 Swede, English is second language. So when you're in hairy situations and you can't get your words out very quickly, that can be quite challenging when you're hollering on deck at each other, so you're trying to hear through the wind and all that.
Yeah. And I'm an inflection person. There's what you say, how you say it. And sometimes it came across to be like a little bit, he's probably just trying to do it mental translation to English, but we got along great by the end. And that was part of the experience. And what I would say real quick on board was, how is it that we're on board different countries from all over, right? And we're all getting along so well, and yet other countries are at war with each other.
I think we have time for one more.
Okay.
Steve.
Oh, boy. Steve's putting me on the spot a little bit. So my bucket list goal, one of the others is I want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro at the end of the year in December. And that's something I'm looking forward to doing with my son. And that's the one I'm a little more nervous about. I knew that I would finish the sail with Caroline, but this mountain, it's a big mountain. And so I've got to prepare mentally and physically for that, and something I aspire to do at the end of the year. That the last couple were, yes, yes. Mhm.
Oh, no, that's the Apple background. I have got the same one.
The Piton Mountains. Sure, Billy.
Where are you taking Lisa on her
I
adventure?
know it's not fair. Miss Thanksgiving, gonna miss Christmas this coming year. I know that's just not fair, but actually what we're gonna do, she's always wanted to do a safari. So hopefully she will come and join my son and me when we get off the mountain. We'll spend a few days doing safari in Tanzania.
Everybody, I think that was a fantastic presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing.
Oh, thank you.
In a minute. Okay, with that, that pretty much brings our meeting to an end. I would like to just rattle through the list of things coming up very quickly in order. The district convention, March 22nd, 23rd, still can sign up for that. Walk for Water, right at same time, March 23rd. Bill Green will be talking about that in the next meeting. Mike, the Easter Food Drive looks like the week of March 24th to the 30th. That's coming up. There's a Recycle Plants Tour on March 27th. Mary Jo will be organizing that. Bocce, April 27th is coming up. And that's all coming up in the next couple of months. So strap up and get ready. With that, we would like to have the four-way test and bring this meeting to an end. We're going to ask Greg to do that just to wrap up everything.
Thank you, Bob. Well, of the things that we, sorry, folks, of the things that we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Be beneficial and better friendships will be beneficial to all concerned. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate what you go through when you do your public speaking. Yeah.
Oh, man, you did a great job. Great job.
You're kind. You're kind. Well, thank you, Joey.
On your bucket list.
Well, that's fine.
Okay, but I mean, you got other stuff too.
Yeah, I'm a little afraid of heights, so I want to do a parachute jump from